poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than evil. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than evil. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another dawn. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for letting us use your song on Bridges programming. Welcome to the longest stoop in the world. This is Bridges programming, brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measurement. And we would like to tell you a little bit about what's going on in today's times. That's the Zeitgeist. We want to see what's happening. So anyway, we're here today. With Lou Isme. Hello, Lou.
Hi.
And Susan is not in the video.
Yes, I am.
And then we have Dennis Carius on the phone. Hello, Dennis.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry I'm not in the video, Jeff.
Okay, well, you could be in the video if you decided to go to, let's see, we call this Google Hangouts. And we also have a phone number you can call in.
I know the phone number.
What's the number?
863-812-4736. I haven't memorized it yet. But
it's
4736 is the last four numbers.
And that stands for HREM. Go ahead.
863-812-4736.
Which is HERM, the last four digits. And the reason we have a lot of things happening in the world today, and it seems like there's an awful lot of unrest. And
there's a lot of people guessing at what other people are thinking, is what I'm finding when you hear the news. And I mean, Lou, what do you think the predominant themes are right now, or what's being said are the predominant themes? You know, that's what Zeitgeist means. The literal translation would be time ghost, but it means the signs of the times, the underlying current of the times, let's put it that way. What would you say at this point is
I would say
dominant?
That if we use the contemporary terms of the right wing being conservative and the left being more populist, the world seems to be turning more toward conservatism.
why?
To the right.
Why do you think it's turning toward? I mean, I don't like to divide the world up like that. I don't like to divide religions up like that. But why do you think the world? Why do you think
It's becoming more conservative.
What do you think the problem is?
Well, the situation seems to be that people generally feel left out, not included.
In
They're tired of the
their
way,
economics or in their
No, no, no,
government?
no, I mean,
in every way.
okay,
everywhere.
so,
Well, let Lou finish.
okay, go ahead.
Well, it seemed to be left out.
Oh, they feel
Being
that.
tired, yes. The world is run by corporations. That seems to be a given.
Mhm.
Been run by cronyism, corruption. Turn to a country that's in the Western field where there isn't cronyism and corruption. Trade deals are made, not for the benefit of people, unless you are a beneficiary because your income is so low that you're going to get it being paid by U.S. currency standards, $1 or less an hour, whatever it happens to be, more or less that amount of money.
Well, other people that benefit from
And
that
they
would be
would-
the
and
corporations
they would
and the
benefit,
people who own shares in those corporations.
and the shareholders benefit, sure.
Mhm.
But it's also the bulk of the shareholders who are really making out. Matter of fact, I heard the news this morning where they're saying they're panicking because they're seeing the stock market drop. So people are pulling out of the stock market and they're saying, don't do that, just stay in because we want, but the reality is, but I want to get back to the original. See, it's so easy to get off track. What you're saying, though, in essence, is people don't have a voice in their life, in their physical life.
Well, that's certainly part of it.
And the reason they don't have a voice in their physical life is because the media is controlled by the corporations.
True,
The laws are
The
written.
laws are written for the corporations.
true.
And the
And the politicians are chosen for their attitudes that will be
keep the status quo
yes,
alive.
right.
Okay, now,
So, but you're seeing a trend toward more conservatism.
Which is
How
the-
do you define?
but that's not
Well,
conservatism.
people
What do
are
you
tired
define
of-
it as?
No.
Wait, Jeff.
No, we're getting the isms mixed up because you're not seeing a trend you're seeing a trend toward conservatism, which is absolutely doing the opposite of what people would like to see happen.
Well, that's true. There,
And the reason why you're seeing a trend toward conservatism is because the lies that are being put out by the people who are running for office.
and I must say that I'm not pleased with the way that general media is handling all this.
So they're
because
controlled by the corporations.
they keep asserting
You have
that they have some independence and that they are trying to be balanced in all this.
Or
Go
What do
ahead,
you
Lou.
think, Lou?
for those who are interested and enjoy reading, there's a book titled When Corporations Rule the World by a man named David Korten, Korten.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
We've heard of the book. We know that. Here's your problem. The average person today who's going to
Doesn't have
vote
time to read that.
doesn't
book.
have time to look at books. They listen to the media the way it's set up. They have bites. They have tweets. They don't even talk on the phone. They text each other. That's the way the world's running today with
Well, they
most
don't have
people.
the time to educate themselves that thoroughly, that they can read all the details of what brings about
And it would be
the
nice to be
position
able
that we're
to.
in
We
right now.
can't go back to where, 40 years ago, this country had free time. You worked.
Actually, the
30
elimination of time that people could do these kind of things and educate themselves, not necessarily go to formal education, but to read, and educate themselves about important issues like what's happening with the economics. The elimination of our free time has been the biggest capture of population, I think, in the
Worldwide.
worldwide. Yes,
Well,
the biggest enslavement that's happened is our in the developed countries, and the big populations that are supposedly benefiting from all the technology. The elimination of any opportunity to think carefully and only the the constant pressure of the 9-to-5 job that goes even longer than that now, taking all your time, and then whatever kind of education you get has to be geared toward getting more money, because you're always going to, because this is the imperative of our economic system now, more and more money, to the point where people who can't keep up, they're just dropping off the register and becoming this group that you're describing, Lou, that feels they have no say, because their lives are completely not within this dynamic that's going forward with our economics of profit finding and shareholder rewards. And even if we are shipping jobs to places where people need the jobs, and we're enslaving them at low salaries, and getting product that we can sell, at huge markups all around the world, nobody, even they are not really they're not really benefiting. They're just surviving, just like everybody else.
Yes, true.
I'll stop.
Well, I find that I can keep up with the world, or at least our world in this country, 1 hour a week listening to alternative radio, which is broadcast out of Boulder, Colorado. It's carried by hundreds, many hundred college, university TV stations, public access organizations, various kinds. It's on Twitter, it's on almost any kind of communication. 1 hour a week, it's a speech given by some learned person, some experienced person, somewhere in the country, or sometimes elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Alternative radio.
So what are you getting from? What sense are you getting from alternative radio?
Hold on.
The issues with which we are confronted.
Okay, but here is my problem.
What are their solutions?
I've listened to alternative radio. I've listened to the Pope. I've listened to Bernie Sanders. I've listened to Donald Trump. I've listened to Hillary Clinton. And they're all saying we have a problem. And that's all they're doing. They're saying, yes, we have a problem. You listen to what's going on. The Brits just pulled out of the EU, and they're blaming
the old people.
They're blaming the old people.
Saying they can't adjust, and they're going to be harming the young people coming up. But the young people can't get jobs.
Let me get to the point of what we're talking about. What I see is alternative radio gives us some interesting news, but that's not one person with an answer to the problem. I mean, we over and over again, we're listening to the problems, but no one is saying there's got to be a cure. Well, we need campaign finance reform. Well, we've been talking for that for 20 some odd years. You can't expect to get campaign finance reform if you have a problem with the corporations are the one who's controlling the media. And I think the problem, and I think we hit on it with this HREM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure, because we're saying that we have to base the economic system worldwide on the physical reality, the needs of humanity, not an arbitrary subjective number. And that's where we're coming from, because whatever the Pope is saying, and they did some great work, whatever they're saying on alternative radio, they're giving you the problems. They're not one bit suggesting a cure. And I don't care how many. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Let Lou respond, because he's the one who's been listening to this recently.
Any cure, if you want to use that word, depends on people being informed.
So they're informed.
No, they are not informed.
They're informed as far as, look, I got to bring this out. It's so instruction.
Because information is being controlled.
The information, including on AR radio, alternative radio, I've listened to them many times, and they put on these esoteric people who talking about the economy, the stock market, about what's going on in Syria, what's going on within the religious organizations, what's going on. They give you all the problems.
There's
They
some
inform you very well about the problems, but they're not informing you about what you could do about it.
What we can do about it depends on whether the people are going to speak up and use their voice and their power.
What do
they have?
But how can they speak up if they don't have the
Full
picture of what's going on what's happening to them? They're just know that they're not pleased with what's happening to them. They're going to go to a strong person, which
like
we're
Donald
now,
Trump,
which
or like
we now
Hitler,
have.
or like Hitler. Hitler filled in a void after the First World War.
I mean, if the intellectual.
Let me finish up, please.
Okay.
Hitler filled in a void because Germany was devastated economically, and then Hitler was able to fill in a void, and he blamed the Jews and the Poles, and he had
Which
scapegoats.
is happening now. Scapegoats are being surfaced everywhere. They're saying that this Brit thing was a revolt against the elites. That's ridiculous. It's not a revolt against the elites. It has nothing to do with that, in my opinion.
When you speak of Hitler, you're speaking of fascism.
Right.
A man named Britt, I believe it's Britt, but you can check it out, studied seven dictatorships, came up with a list of 14 items common to these dictatorships.
Right.
And I can tell you how to get a copy for yourself.
We can't afford. Trouble is, Lou, we really can't afford the time in our life to keep on looking at people's copies of stuff, books and books and books written that doesn't create a cure or a fix.
Man,
Go ahead.
You're so full of ideas. I think I'm wondering whether you're missing something.
Okay, let me find out what we're missing.
If you can do it right now, you can see it. Otherwise, just pass on the information. There's an organization in Syracuse here known as Syracuse Culture Workers. If you Google the site and look for the signs of fascism, you'll find 14 specific items that apply to what's happening generally in our country and other countries also. And reading that list and paying attention to what you're reading, you'll find out what's wrong. The issue always is, what are we going to do about it?
Exactly.
That's what we're not discussing.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what Jeff is saying.
When I say we, I mean large enough segments of the society.
Well, the thing is, Lou, here's my problem. And I got to get this out because we've actually shown many times in the program that list you sent us about we're moving toward fascism.
Right.
We agree.
Now we agree. Now
other countries too.
Now,
Right.
yes, around the world. Now,
Because the suppression of real information that people could make decisions off of is creating a situation where people are now turning to someone who speaks the loudest and speaks to their discontent, but doesn't have solutions either. I mean, people turn to a strong person when they are desperate, and this is what we're seeing is a form of desperation, I believe.
I agree with that, and that's why they had Hitler got involved, because they had a serious economic problem. And Hitler said, well, here's your problem. The Jews are your problem. They had no money, so they went to war, and he almost took over the whole world. Now, if you get someone, let's say, like Trump in here, Trump's the kind of a guy, in my opinion, who would go ahead and get the right generals in place and say, I can be the president for life. And that, to me, is something that, now,
declare a state of emergency.
We have to go further back than the First World War, the Second World War. We have to go further back to see we're only looking at the history from what we can see in our lifetimes, or even 2 lifetimes ago. The problem started well before 5,000 years ago. Because before that, when human beings, and this is very important to understand, that we've been so schooled to look at the way the different isms work: communism, socialism, fascism,
And to have them compete with each other.
Now I'm suggesting to you that my idea, the simple, not my idea, but people I've dealt with for the last years now, we've come to a thinking process that the entire world economic system is based on competition in the last 5,000 years. And as long as it's based on competition and not cooperation, we're going to continue on with these wars. We're going to continue
using up all the natural resources,
getting the cheapest labor we can, and then we work this into the corporations. And by the way, the corporations, when they were started, they were literally started in this country to start colleges with. Did you know that? The first corporations were built there so we can start colleges with. And then it went to the railroads, and it grew from there. It evolved to be the most insidious thing we possibly have.
Are you speaking of the New England colleges that were built on the slave trade?
It was the actual start of the corporations. The corporations started because they needed a long-term financial setup
future
for colleges, generally across the board. You talked about
the structure of a corporation.
The beginning colleges started. They made them into legal corporations, and that's how corporations got started. And then you had the railroad joining into the corporation. That was Rockefeller.
He used that kind of law.
I want to go even further back. I want to go further back to when you didn't have a United Kingdom. When you had, let's say, before Christ, all humanity for 5,000 years ago, humanity worked in cooperation. If they found a drug or a plant that benefited them, they told their friends about it, their neighbors. And then once human beings started to have abundance, once they had abundance, in their tribe, they said, well, we have to protect our abundance. So they hired a guy in the tribe to say, you protect our abundance. And then they protected the abundance, and they made this guy, who was sort of a lazy guy, by the way, but he was strong. And they said, you help us protect our abundance. And he said, well, I can't protect it from the other tribes unless I have some more help. So they gave him people in the tribe, and that was his army. So he had the king, they made him a king. And then all these kings started out in tribes. This is when we first got, before the economic system really started, then you had all these kings, and then the kings would fight in these huge wars. And those huge wars, they would kill one another off. So the king said, wait a second, we can keep our slaves going, but we have to unite. And therefore we had something called the United Kingdom that we've all heard of. It's carried on to this day. And the United Kingdom is a group of people who came together to make sure they can control the economic system. And to this day, a small group of people controls the entire economic system, and they have us chasing our tails between the media and the books being written and the professors coming out of these colleges who are supposed to know something, and the economists who have a jibber jabberish. They're like a belief system about the economy. How much is a dollar worth? How much is a human being worth? We don't have that. And I'm suggesting that we have to change, and we have to understand that we can't overthrow a government, even if we had the ability to get on the air. What are you going to do about it? No one's going to vote in the right people, because the voting is corrupt. The money is corrupt. Worldwide, it's not just United States. So we need to get a measurement in position that people can say, this is what a tax structure should be based on physics.
Physical needs.
This is what a human being should get paid anywhere in the world, based on physics. And we know that every human being in the world requires education primarily, which should be no cost for any education, food, and shelter. They've got to have those things to survive. If I cut the food or the shelter off to a certain degree, they will die. So
It's measurable, is
and
what you're
and,
saying.
and we all live about 80 years of life, more or less. So we can now do an axiom, a mathematical axiom on lifespan, units of energy for food and units of energy for shelter. And if the world agrees upon that, then we've got a game where we can change the economic
Well,
system.
that should be what the referendum
That
is.
should be the right.
Yeah, the referendum should focus on what are the basic needs that every person in the world needs. This is a global economy. It's a global problem. It should be a global referendum. People should. That is what we can all ultimately, I believe, agree on. I mean, it's such a simple concept, and it's totally missing from our economics. Totally.
And that's what the Pope's
But
been saying.
we have a guest, Jeff.
Okay, how do you think we can make, I mean, if you disagree with that, I'd like to find out where we're missing something, but how else can we possibly get an economic system that benefits humanity without a measurement based on the physical needs of a person?
Let them speak.
You have to get people.
Sorry, who are you asking?
You have to get the attention
Oh,
of
Lou,
the
okay, not
people.
Dennis.
In order to get folks focused on an issue,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a crisis of some sort. There has to be some mechanism of getting people to focus on one issue. There are a number of the issues before the world. We can't think of our own issues without the effects of what we're doing in other countries, because there's going to be blowback. An example that there was already a blowback against the United States of America with the creation of independent states working together. We see it in Central and South America. We are not invited into their conferences. We once dominated that part of the world. We're no longer dominating. That should be a wake-up call for us.
Okay, when we talk about different parts of the world,
But we have a crisis.
yeah,
I believe there is a crisis. It's a slow-moving, almost insidious
the
economic crisis
hold it.
that is involving everyone in the world.
But do they understand that there is a crisis?
I think a lot of people in the world understand it's an economic crisis, and I think more people understand it in the area, normal people like us who have not benefited from huge amount of advantage in terms of economics or education, or we're basically self-educated. We're living in the trenches. We know what the economics is doing to our lives. We're paying the bills. We're paying the taxes. We know how the prices are changing in the stores. We know these things.
But there is a crisis.
And
wait a second. The crisis.
You don't have
Whoa.
May I?
No, I can't let you go on like that, because that's nothing compared to the people who are being shot in Africa. There was 6 million people. Right. You got people in Syria who are being displaced and shot in the head and starved out. There are people who are closing borders up because those people are being. There is a crisis. There's a worldwide crisis.
I'm asserting that there is, and I'm saying that everyone is being affected. And the people that don't think they're being affected are still being protected in their cocoon of having played the economic system or been enabled to play the economic system at the way that it wants to be played. Let's put it that way. They are still benefiting from, let's say, family money, shares that they have been able to buy. But it's going to affect them too. It isn't us against them. It's moving on up or down or wherever you want to say. It's moving out to everyone. And eventually our economics is going to even eliminate who we're perceiving as elites, because everyone at any level can perceive anyone who has a little more than they do as an elite.
Okay,
this is not a definition.
I want to get back to the cure. In other words,
right?
We only have about maybe 5,000 to 6,000 people a week looking at our programs. What you could do to help this happen, if you understand that we need to have a basic idea, a measurement that all humanity has to have their basic needs met, and it's a measurable amount
for their work effort within
life.
our economy.
Like the average person today, how many hours do you spend on the telephone trying to save yourself $20 or $30 because they keep on putting you off? Because the big guys don't care. They put the people on the front lines who are doing your collecting for them, and they just keep on wasting our life over and over again. We need to be able to use. Anyway, here's what you could do. And people yell at me because I don't get the message out. The message is, you don't join us. You don't send us money. You understand that we need to have a measurement, a basic measurement. And we're calling it the HRM, but it could be anything.
And what
based on physical things.
What does that stand for?
Human renewable energy measure. Based on lifetime work, which is about an hour a day or a day a week for your basic needs met, not your wants. Your wants are what makes us human. You have 23 more hours a day, or you have 6 more days a week for your wants. If you understand what I said, try to get this talk at your dinner tables about a measurement that's based on humanity, not on subjective economics.
Our wants. We have an economic system that's based on our wants now,
but
and the disposal of them, and the making of something else that you might want that's supposedly better. This is constantly going on. But meanwhile, everything that is really necessary for human survival is not included in our economics. It's a side effect. If at the most, it's like, yeah, you have enough money to buy your food because you have a job that pays a certain salary. What if you have no job? What if there's no jobs available?
And you don't have an income? What do you do about it? The average person today, even with a college degree, is working in Burger King or McDonald's. Look, what is going on here? There is something radically wrong. And if you say it's the corporations, yeah, but who's controlling the corporations? Nobody.
I don't expect you to accept what I'm going to say, but something to consider. We're talking about people around the world, and we're saying that they need certain basic things. Prior to that, getting any action, basic to this is a respect for one another. Do we have that? Do we have empathy for one another? You're expecting people to jump on the idea of the one common denominator for evaluating the worth of people. Do people respect one another enough for that? Do they have empathy for others? And are they willing to bring other people into the fold and working together? To me, that's an essential part.
And that's a symptom of the economics as we practice.
Yeah, that's a symptom of the problem.
But to divide us against each other, to create lack of empathy.
Now, wait a second. I want to touch the things he's talking about. You're using the word empathy. That's an emotion.
Yes, it
You're
is.
using the word greed. Well, not you, but other people use the word greed. That's another emotion. You're using the word respect for one another. That's a feeling, an emotion. The problem is the economic system is dividing us so seriously that most people can't even consider. All they talk about is the word greed. Dennis is out there. He loves the word greed because he's saying that's the problem with the system. Well, the problem with the system isn't greed. Anyone in the Western world is a hell of a lot more greedier than some people who are starving now in the Eastern world. No matter how poor we are in this part of the world, we are in fact infidels because we're allowing other people to die in a different part of the world, and I can understand that quite well.
Well, that's an empathetic reaction.
It's my empathetic reaction,
right.
but the reality is, and the reason we do this program is we want to stop other people from starving to death in Syria, being displaced from parts of the world. In Africa, they set up, because of the economics, not because of religion, but they set up a religious war so they can move the cobalt into our Western part of the world to increase the economic system. And we've had people on the program who were in some parts in time really ran the Tutsis and the Wootsies, whatever they call them. But they say it was not really. They got along great until they put someone in charge, and they gave them a percentage on how much money they pulled out of their country, and they displaced for 20 years now. There's people living in the jungle with nothing, and if you don't think they're easily swayed that we are infidels, I can't imagine that anyone can't see that. We are killing people every day we are alive. Every minute we wake up, every time we buy a car or buy a telephone or a computer, or the way we live, we are killing people all around the world. At least that's what I see. Dennis, do you have anything to say?
Oh, yes. Dennis wants to thank your guest, Lou Ismay, because he's now the chair of a group that I'm with called the Interfaith Alliance. And we really believe that all the faiths should all come together, and they're all doing great work. But what we're being told when I turn on mainstream media, I'm being brainwashed that those Muslims over in the Middle East, that they're terrorists, and we've got to send our troops over there. But that has a lot to do, in my opinion, with the oil that's under the ground over there.
But Dennis, the oil under the ground over there is a form of the economic system.
Let Lou respond.
Is that not a form of this? Everything is about the economic system. Go ahead.
If I was a very rich person and I could get that oil almost for free over there by having a dictator, and then bring it over here and sell it for $3 or $4 a gallon, I agree with you. That's what it's about.
Lou?
Well, it all works together. It's very difficult to attack individually these various issues that cause the problem.
That's interesting. Lou, you've heard of something called peak oil, right? I mean, when the oil peaks out, I think Muslims will stop calling them terrorists.
Well,
when there's no more oil.
Hold it, Dennis.
Dennis,
Yes.
we keep new discoveries of oil reserves indicate that when it peaks, it's going to be in the future. It hasn't peaked. It's peaked by it's already peaked according to whatever reserves were available at that time, whatever that date was. But the new discoveries going on in the Arctic, people want to drill. Russia and China are two of the countries apparently interested in more explorations. So there may be more oil there.
So it's not the oil so much, it's the economic system.
I'm addressing the word peak.
Okay, well, it's not so much the peak oil or the oil, it's about the economics of the oil, is it not?
Well, sure, but it's the economics.
It's driving
it's also,
everything.
if we're talking about oil, it's the fossil fuel. And the only reason that there's any addressing the concept of fossil fuel is the fact that burning fossil fuel is causing the death of Earth. And if that's the situation, it's causing the death, as far as we know, of all living things on Earth. Now, that may not happen. It may only be that human beings will be destroyed because the habitat is being destroyed.
Right.
So we're finding that when we look for it, that there are corporations already changing. Wyoming is one example of one part of the world where wind power is dominating. Coal is receding pretty fast, the use of coal, which is a fossil fuel. So it may be that enough people think about the welfare of living things. That may be one of the steps that change the economic system.
I'm suggesting to you that everybody who does something positive is always affecting we're all affecting,
The outcome.
The
right.
outcome.
Right.
Everybody, we try to, the Bridges program is a humanitarian program. We're trying to come up with cures. We want to get people to come together. We don't want to talk about Republicans, Democrats, socialism, communism, capitalism. Come together as a species and stop killing one another. How do we do that? And we feel as though that if we can come together on a common understanding that all humanity has to work together in cooperation, not in competition, we could change the way the economy works. But the only way to do that,
And then by extension,
the only way to do that is have a measurement to see what we're doing, because we can't do anything as a species, because that's a language, without a measurement to know how much taxes should we pay. Give me a number. How much is the dollar really worth? You can't do that. It's subjective. They say, well, we base it on gold. Well, the reason why gold was a great thing to base it on, it had a very specific weight and a value. But the real value of gold was the individual human being who worked their hours of labor and their life for a certain amount of time, and then they were able to base it on a measurable item. We're saying that was a subjective number, and we're saying we need an objective number, just like gravity or just like the sun coming up every day, that can't be manipulated. And therefore, we're saying we all need 1 million energy units of food, 1 million energy units of water, a certain amount of energy units for your shelter, and by all means, education should be wide open at no cost to anybody for the amount of time, about a day a week, because of today's technology, or an hour a day. That's what we're saying.
And Lou is correct that in order to think along the lines that you just described, Jeff, we have to be capable of drawing on our empathy for other humans, our empathy for other living creatures on this planet, our understanding of the natural systems on the planet as they are protecting our survival. And that balance is just right for us right now on this planet.
But
just right, but we're altering it with the way that we are burning, one of the things, burning fossil fuels, but there are other ways that we're altering it too, with our agriculture, the way that we're displacing whole areas of diversity. Diversity is a very, very important thing to keep in mind, this diversity of living things, diversity of resources, diversity of people, and every person. This is built into our species, that we are diverse. Every person that is born is different. Mm-hmm. And this is the diversity that is our strength. And if we are turning each other, if we're being turned against each other, and then you know that is a detrimental activity for the survival of our species. Now, other species we are impacting, and there is what they call the 6th extinction going on at this point, because we are, as a dominant species, changing many areas of the world to our wants, not our needs anymore. It has been for a long time, encouraged by the way we've been practicing economics for 5,000 years, that we are emphasized, our wants are emphasized. It is an economy of wants. We have to turn this somehow with empathy, as you suggest, empathy for all life forms, empathy for other people who are suffering because of the way economics is practiced. We know that planned obsolescence, meaning things to be thrown away because they supposedly can't be fixed anymore, anything can be fixed. We have the knowledge for this. Things can be reused. It's
just a question of cost.
It's a matter of how things are set up in terms of the recycling of materials. We don't have to go into these areas in the Arctic where now new possibilities of fuel are being exposed because the ice is melting. This is the wrong move. We don't take
it's
more.
It's the right move for the economic system, though. That's the problem.
Wrong move for our survival on this planet. And in fact, the Earth may be in a snide way trying to make sure that we destroy ourselves and gets, it'll shake us off. The earth will be here. Other life forms will survive our dominance on this planet. Life will not disappear entirely because of us, but we have the potential of destroying ourselves, and the earth will allow us to do that because it doesn't have any particular stake in whether or not humans as a species remain on this planet. We have to use our excellent minds, and all of us, in my opinion, have to participate in the larger picture.
So
let's hear from
I want to get back.
Please.
What do you think we could do? I mean, you think that just education, I think, is the most important thing we can do. That I agree with you. But the reality is that we have this great computer system now. There's so much information out there. We have the potential
of educating each other.
But
yes.
How do we move this? I mean, look.
Maybe it's happening.
Okay, Dennis, you wanted to talk about the Interfaith Alliance too, did you not?
What impact do you think that can have?
And also, I just wanted to mention that we really could solve all these problems because there are so many roofs out there. When you put solar panels on those roofs, in 6 or 7 years, you get every penny back.
Okay, I don't want to go into I don't want to go into the economics of solar.
Solar is excellent.
That's a given. I don't want to go into that. What I want to go into, though, is that when Lou talked about empathy and you talk about greed and other people talk about respect, and then we have the Interfaith Alliance, that takes into account feelings. Does that not? The religious portion talks about feelings for humanity. Yes or no?
Yes. I think Lou agrees with me. We all should all come together if we just say, well, what do we all agree on? Right. So we really should not say that those Muslims over there.
Okay. Hold on a minute. Then don't let Lou talk. Go ahead.
Okay.
Faith is one part of life. Whatever we believe in, faith is usually directed toward a supernatural. The concept used to be maybe 4 decades ago, or 5 decades ago, there's one God and many ways to worship him. That was a concept, well, at least goes back to the 1920s, maybe the 30s, by a book that illustrated that fact or that idea, that concept. So the faith community is one part of life. And supposedly, the leaders of each of those faiths, whatever they're called, are concerned with some of the ethics and the morals of the world. And these people play an important part. It's not a cure-all. It's one important part. It's mainly ethics and morals, which, if you want to call them feelings, okay, that's what they are. But it's not, it's an important ingredient to get people to think.
But Lou,
and thereby change their attitudes.
Okay, the biggest belief system on this planet, Lou, is the belief in money and the economic system. That's the biggest belief system we have. Bigger than the Muslims, bigger than the Christians, bigger than the Jews, yes. You name it.
It's because human survival system. Depends on it. Right.
Go ahead.
If you read the Quran, don't have to read all of it, just skim it. You read the Bible, pay attention to what the Torah says. There are elements that are identical or very similar.
Agreed.
And the principle, if you want to read them for yourself, look at the 2016 Farmer's Almanac. Look at there's 2 versions at least. Read what is known as the library version, which has more pages. In the back of that issue, you'll find a listing of Zoroastrianism and Islam and all of these religions. And the common denominator is treat others as you would want to be treated. Whatever the words are, the meaning is there.
And that's
It's
empathy.
called the golden rule by people. That's a simple thing. That's the golden rule.
And that's an expression of empathy.
That's
And
the
that's an
right.
expression of respect
Okay, now,
and empathy.
Right.
now the question is, I have to go into cooperation, into competition. If I want to sell something and I want to sell it to make a profit, I'm always going to go into competition with the person I'm selling it with.
And cutting them out.
Because-
There's no argument about that.
Okay,
No,
but
there isn't.
that's
You're
my,
looking
But
for
that's our
no,
problem.
no,
We're not-
that's the problem though. The problem is we're not working in cooperation to help one another. We're
These
working in-
sentiments of the faith, community are not incorporated into our economics.
A matter
These
of-
are two opposing
a matter of fact,
entities.
let
Lou speak.
No, this is important because I got this. This is like when he said this. By having all these different religions, one of the ideas of getting people into your own religion is not for a different God, but to get them to join you so they support your church. So you have money coming in. The suggestion to all these churches is about 10% of your income. And whether it's the Judaism or Christianity or any different parts of Lutheranism or whether you're a Lutheran or a
Different
Presbyterian, they all started these religions where they have to get money into their church. And the reason for separation of church and state was because the economic system, this goes back before 4,000, 5,000 years ago, they said, okay, you believe in what you want to believe in. We won't charge you any taxes, providing you don't get into politics. And that's how they control the religions,
And
through
that's-
economic systems. Now this is pretty obvious to see, Lou, but once you start dividing up all these religions, they're all it's about the economics and the religions themselves. You see what I'm saying?
Sometimes.
I
in some
hear
of them.
what you're saying,
It's not every
but
your personal worship is a different thing.
I think are we confusing the word problems with the word called issues?
We don't know.
We don't
How
know
do you
that.
define that?
But aren't they all?
Well, I'm thinking of an article that I read in a Reader's Digest years ago. It was an example of a discussion. I don't remember the details, but it regarded an airplane that crashed on an island where it was specific, where it was. So the questions that were posed to the group of people, and these were the women who served and worked on those planes. The plane crashes. You're alone. There are these many men. This was wartime example. What would you do? Well, somebody would commit suicide. Somebody would do this and this. And one of the women said, well, I understand the issue. What's the problem? Are we in that same category? We're calling something a problem when it's not. The real problem that I see is enough people knowing about the issues, caring enough about the issues to solve the problem that these issues respect.
But it's interesting.
Or affect.
When you said that statement, what is the problem? That somebody brought that question up. That is, what is the reality of our situation, and what should we address so that we can survive here?
It's not the-
That's what I hear. From
I don't
that
believe
statement.
I don't even believe it's the.
Well,
I think the issues are what's distracting us. What is our actual problem?
That's a good point.
What
Okay.
is not happening for the human population
What should
right
happen that is
now,
not
and
happening.
what should happen that is not happening?
Right.
And that's the problem that we should be addressing.
I understand the situation regarding time communications, but all I have to offer in this instance is a book. Its title is Extinction Dialogues. People who are preparing for their own death as a result of what's happening on the planet. Now, whether it's a realistic example of what's going on or not, it's worth reading. Extinction Dialogues. I don't recall the author's name. There are two.
Well,
So it's a discussion of the facts presented by the scientists and the ideas. And I haven't completed the book yet. I'm just
Okay, well,
beginning.
see, my problem is, again, we know there's so many books being written, and there's so many ways of showing problems, and what we're going to do about it as far as killing ourselves or about changing the politics. But that's not what's happening is it's a distraction from the actual real problem. The real problem is we're not doing something that should be being done, and what has to be done is a way of making sure all humanity has their basic needs met, so we don't keep on going
through
to
our
war.
economic system.
And that has to go through our
And
economic
through the labor
system.
of every person.
And that's why
works.
we feel as though without a measurement we can't figure that out. We know that it's cost, for arguments, let's go back to the economy. Let's suppose that it cost us $1 a day to stay alive. Now, we say, okay, so we're going to make sure everybody has $1 a day to stay alive. That's great. That's a great thing to do. Worldwide, $1 a day, it's going to be a worldwide economy. That would work. However, if the people making money say, if we give everybody enough to stay alive, it's going to create inflation. And I don't believe that. But the $1 a day is not based on what a human being needs, unless you base it on the physical needs of the amount of energy units for food and shelter. And then we have to, and the reason why we have empathy, we do this programming. People who are out there who, like you and Dennis and people who are
We're
out
all
there,
empathetic,
or in this case, let's say Bernie Sanders, he has empathy for the rest of the world. He has empathy for the world. The Pope has empathy. He has respect for all humanity.
And children are born with empathy.
And
yes.
human beings basically have empathy. We know we can't kick each other in the foot because it's going to hurt the other person, and we don't want to be kicked either. And we've learned that because of our learning processes through our lifespan. But we know we don't want to kill one another, but we can't help doing that because the economic system almost demands we kill people. When you go to war to get their product, you went to war to get their natural resources, you've just killed people. So you're killing people all the time because of the economy. We need to change the basic essence of the economic system, that means we have to change our thinking process, our belief system, that we have to go back thousands of years because we've been schooled for thousands of years to believe the economic system is working. It's a belief system that is the most strongest belief system in the world for humanity. Now, squirrels don't have that problem. Birds don't have that problem. They don't have an economic system. Their basic needs must be met or they will die. They don't have to go through different courses of monies and insanities of telephones and cars and distances. They have to get from point A to point B. They have a homing instinct for that. We are nothing more than animals, but we have, because of our evolution, our species.
Jeff,
Go ahead.
Jeff. Everything you're saying boils down to time is money.
But money doesn't have a value.
Time is money. That's the story that we have.
Right now.
That's right. And that's the story that has been governing society and all of us
For thousands of years, right.
Time is money. What about change story?
That's right. That's what we want.
What about time is life?
Right.
Right. As a matter of fact, in that
We
case,
did That's exactly true.
There's a whole, that concept is developed by David Korten, Korten.
time is life.
Time is life.
But
Everybody comes up with this. This isn't just somebody.
This is not our.
We
but
whole
how do we?
program on this.
How do we actually base it?
Nobody owns an idea.
How do we base time as life? How do you measure it?
I only can give you from my experiences. There are. It's a well-developed system, if you want to call it.
There's no
techniques
but Courtney
to change people's attitudes.
But Courtney does not have a way of measuring that.
I don't know. It doesn't come into that.
You have to. You have to base every economic system that on a non-subjective basis, and that's why.
First, you have to get people thinking about a story.
That's true. They have to be able to imagine a new story. Yes.
If you want to understand indigenous people, you have to understand their story of origin. How do those people believe that they started?
Well, we know that.
Or what is?
That's an anthropologist.
And so we have to understand how we got into this, and is time, is money, the focus that we learned when we were children, and which is incorporated into our entire global
life is the most important thing we have.
Then that is what has to be stressed,
of course.
And that's what we're stressing with that measurement. Well, listen, believe it or not, we went through an interesting hour today, but I don't. And please look up the HREM if you believe in that life is the most important thing, not money. Please help get this concept out. Check out Courtney's book and check out the concept that we have to base everything on.
It's never quite enough for energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you.
It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, hidden fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even fish converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.